At 5 years old, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. There's a ton of type 1 nonprofits. Most of them are focused on research and finding a cure. Like, I'm at a point too where my female friendships and meeting these really strong, powerful women who run their own businesses, that's been life-changing for me and how I want to continue.
Welcome to another episode of the Housewives of Encino. I'm kidding. This is the Dope Designer Club podcast still. And my guest today is my friend Laura Pavlakovich, who runs a wonderful nonprofit. And she's a dear friend and a wonderful human being. Laura, thank you so much for being here. We had so much fun just seconds ago. How are you today?
I'm good. Also, let me say it's so nice to have someone who can pronounce my last name since we're both Croatian.
Yes.
Because that never happens on the first try.
Absolutely. I'm so happy I can do that for you. So, Laura, tell us, where should we start? Let's start at the beginning. Where are you from? What do you do? How would you like to get introduced to our audience?
I was born and raised in the South Bay, so Hermosa Beach, Redondo Beach area.
Very lucky.
Very lucky, very blessed. I went to photojournalism school after high school. I always wanted to do photography. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I found this really amazing international program when we got to travel the world, lived in 8 different countries. It was focused on injustice and poverty. So I was 17 years old, seeing lots of really big things in front of me. We fought against human trafficking and child prostitution in Thailand. We worked with organizations to get these sex workers out of sex work. We worked at a government orphanage in China. We were in Paris and Dubai and Egypt. And again, I was so young. And from such...
You're still young.
It was a long time ago. But I was so young, and I was from such a...
2 years ago.
I just got off the plane. I was coming from such a small, white, wealthy little beach town that it was this huge culture shock, obviously, for anyone it would have been. But I came home and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? All the photographers in Redondo Beach were taking photos of dolphins and sunsets, and I was like, that's great.
Family photos.
But I really, after seeing that, I had this moral obligation to do something bigger and try to change the world.
I love that. Let's back up a little bit. So, I mean, you have obviously a creative base. You are a visual artist. The pictures you post on Instagram are like art. Like, Laura will take a picture of a burrata salad and it would look amazing. And so you obviously have this, the basis of your work is creative, but then you sort of intertwined it with the social justice aspect, which I think is phenomenal. But then tell us a little more, because we're going to get to your nonprofit too.
So let's back up then even further.
Let's go.
Let's take back even further to 2 years ago when I was 5 years old. But at 5 years old, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I was diagnosed so young that I feel lucky that I don't know anything different. But I never was like, what am I going to do?
I love how you said, I feel lucky,
Because I meet parents all the time who are like, I can't believe my kid is never going to know a different life, or they'll never have a life without diabetes. And I always reassure them, I'm like, I would go crazy if I got to live life without this disease, and then suddenly that was taken from me.
I love that perspective, because it's you're such a positive person, we know that, but just making that statement, I feel lucky to have this condition that a lot of people would find tragic and inconvenient and annoying and depressing.
Well,
and all
don't
these
get me
things.
wrong. I don't feel lucky I have the disease.
I
feel lucky with the timing.
But you're considering the circumstances, and there's always a positive aspect to any situation, and I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and you have to. I have to think that way. But you'll meet people too who are diagnosed later that are happy they were diagnosed later, because they're like, at least I got the first 30 years without it. So I think it's all about perspective.
I love that.
But I was diagnosed so young that I never, when I was growing up, I wasn't like, so what do I want to do with my life while I have type 1 diabetes? It was just me. I had type 1. It was always the question of what do I want to be?
That's your baseline.
Right. I never thought about it when I was figuring out my life path or purpose. And then I Came home from this photojournalism program, really lost, moved back to the South Bay. I was working as a waitress at a restaurant. And it wasn't until I met a mother of a type 1 son, and she didn't know my background, and she shared with me, she was like, my son cries himself to sleep at night. He thinks he's the only person living on this planet with diabetes. There's no representation. And she said this line that I'll never forget. And she said, I can only show him statistics on a computer so many times of how many other people share this disease with him. And I was like, of course, he's 4 years old. You can't tell this kid numbers and have him understand. And it was then when I was like, okay, maybe I take portraits of people living with type 1 diabetes so that this boy can have pictures to look at and like see
Which is
all
the same
faces.
type of work you've done with this other social justice organization,
Exactly.
correct?
It's all about photos that tell a story. So I was like, it was the perfect intersection of how I can combine these two things, which I never thought I would be doing
I love that.
or wanted to do.
I love that.
And he was the inspiration. And so I had gone to like diabetes camp growing up every summer. So I had a few friends that I still kept in touch with. And I reached out to them and I was like, can I take your photo? I want to start this photo project. It was just a blog. It was just an idea for a blog at the time.
I think it's a great exhibition too. Like we need to make an exhibition of this work.
Right. And
Yeah.
I know. I've thought about that. I thought about a coffee table book. I should get the portraits printed. But I was like, let's put a face to this invisible disease. That was the whole
Yeah, I
goal.
love that. I think what you're, I guess, talking about, or how I see it, is like there's a lot of people who feel isolated in their condition, whether it's diabetes or whatever else. And I love this idea of putting a face to it, how you said it. That's so personal.
And
it makes it personal.
Yeah, and it's a way to connect, like you said. And I always say you cannot have this disease alone. You cannot get through it alone. It is a very isolating disease. Just to share, type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. It is different than type 2. It's a chronic illness. Your body doesn't produce any insulin, among other hormones that your pancreas doesn't produce. But because of that, we have to give ourselves synthetic insulin every time we eat, every time our blood sugar goes high. We have to eat sugar when our blood sugar goes low. There's a lot of factors that affect your blood sugar. If you exercise, your blood sugar goes low. If it's hot outside, you can go high or low. And there's so many variables. And suddenly, as individuals with no medical backgrounds, we are in charge of making these life-saving decisions for ourselves. And it's scary.
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis. And at night, like even at night. And you can't get a break from it. It's 24/7. It's exhausting. The depression rates are really high. The suicide rates are really high. And it's a lot of people don't feel the need to reach out to anyone for help. And another theme with type 1 diabetes, and I know this from meeting so many, is that it's really easy for us to feel like a burden because you're out with a group of friends and you're all sitting down to eat and suddenly you realize your blood sugar is too high, so you have to wait to eat and you don't want to speak up and be like, can we all pause so that I can wait? So you end up like not saying anything. Or you're going on a hike with your friends and your blood sugar drops and you don't want to stop the entire group, so you're like standing in the back just eating sugar so nobody notices really quickly and like wanting the day to go on. And it's a very common theme of not feeling like a burden. And I think that might be our biggest connection.
So I guess there's the medical aspect of it, which is the sort of technical measuring your sugar, and I think the technology now is like gone like a long way.
Yeah.
But I also think that there is this like personal and behavioral and interpersonal aspect that you're talking about.
Absolutely. So we'll go back again. Now I feel like I got off track, but
of course, no.
So we started.
There's no such thing.
Okay,
we go on tangents all the time.
Okay.
It's chill. I'm not a real host. This is not CNN. This is all fake.
None of this is real.
Nothing here is real.
Perfect. That takes all the pressure out.
Yeah.
So I start this photo blog. We call it "You're Just My Type."
I love that name too.
Thank you. And it blows up very quickly. This was back in 2016. So social media was just like Instagram was just coming out. Social media was just coming out. We didn't have influencers yet. And so all these type 1 diabetes accounts.
We didn't have housewives.
We didn't have housewives. What did we do? How did we survive? So we started this blog, and back then it was so important for me to take the photographs myself because I was like, this is my baby. I get to I'm benefiting too from meeting all these type 1 diabetics in person. So for the first few years, I would go and like I put out a Facebook post and be like, I'm looking for type 1s in Southern California to photograph. And I met so many. I probably have photographed over 1,000 people living with type 1 diabetes. And I'd go drive to San Diego, all over LA. And then I started doing little meetups in different cities. And then everyone would come to the meetup so they could get their photos taken. And then I would take their portraits. And then things.
I would love to see this work.
Yeah,
that would be
and it's
amazing.
all on our Instagram account too. And then COVID hit, and suddenly I was still working. I was a full-time nanny at this point, so this was solely just a passion project. And after this, the Instagram page was growing. People wanted to meet in person. Oh, sorry, this is what I was saying. COVID hit, and then I couldn't take anyone's photo anymore.
Oh, I see.
So for the first time, I said, you know what? Let's just like anyone now can submit their own photo and their story. And once we made that decision, we started featuring type 1s from all over the world.
The world,
and we have people from India and Finland and England and Asia and everywhere. And then that's when the page, like I already thought it had taken off, then it really blew up.
Love that.
Everyone wanted to be featured. And then once you tag the person in the photo, then all the other type 1s can follow them and connect. So it was this really beautiful thing that happened.
Absolutely. You created a community.
Exactly.
I think that's what's so special about it. And I think in listening to your story, what's so wonderful and magical is that you went from, being, somewhere, an individual really, and kind of connecting all these other people and you connecting with them too, I think is also magical. Like taking all these portraits, I could imagine like you meeting these people and, sharing your stories and really connecting. I think that's such an important thing.
Thank you. It was amazing. And we asked the same, every single person I photographed, I would ask the same 4 questions to. And it was like, what is your biggest piece of mental health advice or advice for another type 1? What would you tell your newly diagnosed self? What's like a life hack you've learned? And it was really fascinating to see the similarities in everyone's answers. And I'm like, we all live in other parts of the world and we're all really dealing with the same issue here.
It's universal.
Right.
Yeah.
So as of 3 years ago, we started.
You should get like a Nobel Prize for this.
Like, who do we
seriously,
talk to
I
about
am just like, I don't know. We have to like figure it out. Like something.
Well, it's gotten even better now. So as of 3 years ago, I had this idea. It was still during COVID, but I was like, I just felt this need. There was all these events, like virtual events happening because it was COVID. But I was like, I just had this feeling that we needed to get everyone together for the first time. So
in person.
In person.
Yeah.
So I had this idea to do this type 1 young girls event. And it was here, it was in Santa Monica. And it was like a full day.
Of course, the center of the universe.
It was like a little mini conference. And I didn't know who would show up. We had so many people attend. It was girls ages 12 to 17. We had all-female type 1 staff. And we had a social worker, a type 1 nutritionist who did like a cooking class and carb counting class with the girls. We had a type 1 yoga instructor for a yoga class. We did arts and crafts. And it was like
I wanna come.
Exactly. So what happened was after that was so good, I was like, okay, maybe my new path is we do these events for young girls because that's just what I knew because that was me growing up. So I was gonna do those throughout the year, and as soon as we did the first one, everyone was like, no, Laura, the adults need this, the boys need this, the teenagers need this, and I listened immediately. And so that first year we did 18 events.
Amazing. That's really amazing.
I was like, it was the most, I think it was there's nothing like it that exists. And I'm not saying that to give myself more credit than I deserve.
You should give yourself credit.
There's
it's
truly
amazing.
nothing like it that exists.
Yeah.
So now as of, I guess that was 2021, every month we host a mental health event and every age group gets their own event every quarter. So we rotate between adults, teenage girls, teenage boys, and then we have a group of type 1 toddlers in San Diego. Aww. About 20 of them that come out every few months. And every event we do, we have either a speaker who has a mental health background who's type 1. We do activities like journal prompts. And this past weekend...
What is a journal prompt?
We'll have like a board up with like, again, like write a letter. Like we give them journals and pens. Like write a letter to your newly diagnosed self. What is something that you have accomplished that you never thought you would be able to after you received your diagnosis? And it's just like we create these safe spaces for people to get really vulnerable.
Do people cry at the events?
People cry. Lots of people cry.
Oh my God, I'm going to start crying just
I
thinking
cry.
about it. Crying.
I know it's a good event when I'm standing in the corner just crying.
Sobbing.
Like,
you know it was good when you're sobbing in the corner.
Exactly. But I'm like, this is everything
but it's important.
I wanted.
Yeah.
And every time we post an event, we like half the people that sign up are new and have never been to one before. And it's the face people make when they walk into a "You're Just My Type" event and they notice, because back then we didn't have
because
pumps.
They also like belong, you know, it's
Right.
like a sense of belonging,
100%.
you know, and a sense of arrival after, I mean, who knows how many, you know, difficulties and obstacles and challenges and pain and suffering. And you finally arrive and it's your tribe and everyone understands you and sees you. I think that's very powerful.
That's what I say. I say it's like when you're diagnosed, and I'm sure this is the same for all chronic illnesses, like you suddenly have to learn a new language and no one else speaks it. And the second you walk into one of these events or find that community, you're standing in a room where everyone is speaking the same language as you, and it is so powerful.
I love that.
And back then we didn't have insulin pumps. Like when I was diagnosed in the 90s, they were just coming out. We did not have continuous glucose monitors, which most of us wear on our arms and legs now. So you can spot us now. We've always like diabetic in the wild. There's a diabetic in the wild.
Well,
you can see us now, but we didn't have that then.
And I have to say, I like that. I like that there is a visibility to not just diabetics, but like all kinds of, you know, issues and conditions. I mean, I mean, to make a little digression, you know, Nika, my daughter, there's those like pimple patches now that are like stars.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know, it used to be embarrassing. And I'm sure for diabetics, so it used to be, it's something you hide. You're ashamed of it. You don't want to be different from your friends or, you know, in your school or whatever. And you're hiding it. But now, like with the little pimple patch, it's like Nika said, like, oh, it makes a pimple fun. It makes it fun.
And they wear them proudly, like.
And and they get compliments on it instead of being ashamed and like wanting to like hide and like being embarrassed about yourself, you know.
Totally.
And I love that. I love that actually there is more visibility and you see it on people's arms and
and it makes you proud. And sometimes
it normalizes it too.
And I'm guilty of putting mine in spots where it's not visible, because sometimes I'm like, I don't want people to talk to me about it. I don't want people to stare. But then on weeks when I have events, I need it to be visible, because it is what like binds us together.
It's a distinction. It's like your distinction. And I think it's important to put in the open, talk about even like, say, beyond diabetes, you know, like, say depression or I don't know what people, you know, suffer from, anything.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about it. Like, why hide? Why hide who you are, you know?
But that's the thing, right? The shame is inherent in all of us, no matter what you're dealing with.
Well, I'm saying let's go beyond that. Let's shed that, you know, like sense of embarrassment.
Right.
And
that's the goal. And I do want to add, these CGMs are hard to get and they're not accessible to all diabetics, and a lot of people struggle to get them. They're very expensive. Honestly, probably only the 1% gets
Can
access
afford
to these. So I don't want to say like all diabetics are wearing these CGMs, and I don't want to sound like I'm coming from a place. I know that I'm coming from a place of privilege where I get to wear one and the people who come to our events do, and I just want to say that because it's important that there are millions of type 1s who don't even have access to the CGMs. Like that's a whole nother story about what we have to deal with
well, that is
insurance
also,
and accessibility.
I think that's also an aspect and a dimension of social justice.
Right.
You know, if it's something that's keeping you alive, why isn't it available to anybody?
Oh, it should
or
be.
just the 1%?
And even insulin is the 8th most expensive liquid in the world, and the price goes higher every single year. And Big Pharma, like,
I was gonna say.
Don't even get and that's a whole nother episode. Big Pharma. There's a lot of like social justice workers trying to speak in front of Congress to get insulin prices capped, because now when people are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, their fear isn't even, I have to poke myself every single day.
It's the
I
price.
Have to count my
it's
carbs.
whether I can afford it.
Yes, the first thought is I cannot afford to have this disease, and people are dying and they're rationing their insulin, and it is a very fucked up system.
Yeah, that's a very serious problem. Yeah.
And so that's a whole nother thing of where you're in a room with these diabetics at our events, and those people understand that aspect too.
We're back. And we were talking about Laura's amazing shoes just now. But Laura, you came back just recently. You had one of your events in New York, and I think this was your first event in New York. You usually do them here in LA. So tell us, how was it?
It was so amazing. Our goal is it's been 3 years now. We've been doing them in LA, and our number one message we get is, can you please host these in my city? Which just shows the need even more, because everyone's like, are there groups like this in Wisconsin? Are there ones in Canada? We need Austin, Texas. And I'm like, why aren't more people doing this? But our dream is to be running your Just My Type events in every major city nationwide,
Quarterly
year round. Yeah, and our events are free to attend, which again makes us stand out, because a lot of support costs money, but I never want, we pay enough for this disease. I don't want to charge for that. So we had a fundraiser in August. We raised some money, immediately booked a ticket to New York and planned this event. And we had 52 signups within the first few weeks of all strangers who were just excited to have this. And I just got back 2 nights ago, actually. It was incredible. It is true. Like, you see a group of strangers come in, and then by the end, they're family.
That's amazing.
And we did this really amazing activity. It's my new favorite activity we do.
Ooh, can we do it now?
Yeah,
Let's go.
We can. Well, no, there's too little of us. We'll have to get everyone involved. But we did this at an LA event last month, and I was like, we have to redo this everywhere we go. So I passed out papers and pens, and I said, write down something you feel the most shame around, that you would never feel comfortable sharing out loud, or even to friends. Like, just something that feels very shameful to you. So they write them down, and then I mix up all the papers. I have everyone sit in a circle, and I pass out the papers, and we take turns reading them anonymously. No one knows who wrote what. And it is the most freeing. Once people find out that nobody's going to know they're the ones that wrote this, it is so freeing to get that out there in the open. And after we read each one, everyone goes around and gives advice.
I love that.
Or they share if they have also felt the same way, which everyone always feels the same way, which is what makes the activity so beautiful.
I love that. It gets you out of your shell. It gets you out of your funk.
Exactly. And it's amazing to see, like, you read this thing that's your deepest, darkest secret, and then to be in a room of 40 people who raise their hand and they're like, I also feel that way. It again creates the safe space of not feeling.
I love that. I love that. I like how like you make it so fun and engaging, and it's like the pimple patch for diabetes. You know, like, that's your new slogan. You know, like
I could have never predicted that would be our slogan. Let's trademark it.
There's something there for sure.
Pimple patch for diabetes. We should get sponsored by the pimple patch for the next episode.
Exactly. That and Big Pharma. And Big Pharma. But I like that. I love the I mean, it sounds like silly, like these activities, you know, but I think it's one, I think the engagement, the gesture is really important. I wanted to do something for my upcoming birthday. I don't know if I can do a fire in my backyard, probably not, and I hope the fire marshal doesn't hear me. If you're watching, yeah. There's this, I saw it on like some show. They had like, you write something that you want to let go of, and then you burn it. And that's, I think, also kind of powerful. Yeah, and it's sort of like, you know, in some of these like ancient Eastern cultures, when you burn something, you send it off to another world. So I think that's
we can
something to think about, I guess. Like, but I like the you know,
releasing.
Yeah, and there's a contemplative aspect to it. Like, what are you going to write?
Right.
You know, what are you ashamed of? What do you want to let go? What is it?
What comes to mind first?
Yes.
It's really cool to see.
So I guess like a lot of your work is actually focused on mental health.
Yes.
So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, we have officially rebranded as a mental health nonprofit for type 1 diabetics. There's a ton of really amazing type 1 organizations out there. There's a ton of type 1 nonprofits. Most of them are focused on research and finding a cure, which is amazing. Lord knows we need a cure, but my thought process is, what do we do in the meantime?
Yes.
Like, until there's a cure.
Absolutely.
What are we doing? And that's what's important. And being type 1 for so long, I know firsthand that the mental toll can be even harder than the physical toll.
Yeah.
Like I said before, it's a lot of pokes, it's a lot of math, it's a lot of bruises, it's a lot of...
I forgot to do this. So I guess, sorry. It is. It is. It really is.
So that's our focus, is just creating that space. And I wanted to, my new analogy, and I shared this with you before, is like this disease is really hard to explain to people. And especially because we as type 1s make it look really easy. So a lot of people who have a type 1 friend, they're like, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. My friend Laura has it. She's fine. She's running a business around it. We make it look so easy, and it's not. And I came up with this analogy where I'm like, I feel like as a type 1, I was dropped into the deep end of an ocean, and I'm treading water to stay alive. And your arms and legs get so tired. But the most depressing part of this is that you're not swimming to shore. You're not swimming anywhere where you can rest. You just constantly have to tread. And if you stop treading, as morbid as it sounds, you die. And I got in a really deep diabetes burnout last year when that like really sunk in for me, where I was like, I can't even rest. You go and get a massage, you're scared that your CGM is going to be beeping or your blood sugar goes low. You go on vacation to relax, that's a whole new, the time zone changes on your blood sugars, the new foods. Nothing is like, gives you a relief. And I got in a really dark place being like, I'm so tired. Like,
what else can I do?
Like, if I drop my arms, I drown. If I drop my legs, I drown. And this is when it came to me too. I'm like, this is why we have the community, because during those times where you ask your partner for help or your friends for help or family or lean on your friends, those are your life rafts, and you can hold on to them even if it's temporary. But those are the times you can rest your legs and arms from treading. And it took me
It's starting.
It took me 29 years of having this disease to realize that, of thinking like I'm all by myself and nobody can help me. I had people try to offer, you have your loved ones always try to offer, you should anyway. And I was very much like, you can't help me. I'm on my own. Like, what can you possibly do? This is my disease and I have to take it on. And it wasn't until I started dating my current partner, and they were like, let me help. And I did the whole tantrum. I'm like, you can't help. And they're like, let me watch your blood sugars for an entire day. And they have the app on their phone so they can follow along. And they're like, do not open the app because it's data overload. With technology is amazing, but suddenly we have our blood sugars on our phones updating every minute. And so I would like drive with my screen on my phone open and just watch all the arrows changing. And it's too much. There has to be a balance. And so my partner was like, let me just watch for you. I'll let you know if you need to take insulin. I'll let you know what's going on. But if I'm not reporting back, don't open that app and don't think about it. And it took a lot of trust, but I let them do it.
That's wonderful. And it's sort of a way to, I guess that process is also a way to connect with somebody who has diabetes, to understand what they see, what is in their mind, these numbers, like, I think it's a good way to connect.
Absolutely. And I was like, after that, I woke up the next day and I was like,
but it provides relief to you.
I was like, for the first time in my life, like, I'm like, it is possible.
Yes, exactly.
So I think that's important for everyone. It's like, you can feel like you're doing this.
And to develop those relationships.
Right. And
whether it's your partner or, family member or friend.
Exactly.
I love that. I think that's such a wonderful thing. A few things. You said a lot.
As I do.
I loved how you talked about the fact that it's not like you're gonna fix diabetes overnight, how you're gonna find a cure. It's more about what do we do in the meantime, And I think that can be applied to many other, I work with, for years I've worked with an organization, another nonprofit for children and families with, some special needs. And it's not like you're going to cure autism, but this particular organization, they provide resources and education and support and a space and activities for people to meet, to get together, for parents to share their frustrations or traumas or just cry together. And I think that's so important, and community, I think, is so important in what happens in the meantime.
Right.
I think that's such an important aspect, and I think you covered that so well. Yeah.
That's the whole goal. We're definitely not trying to find that. There's an ongoing joke in the community where every time a person's diagnosed, they are told a cure is coming in the next 5 years. And I was told that in 1996. And people before that were told that. And
Yeah.
people before that were told that.
I mean, not that maybe it is going to happen, you know, I think, but like,
Right, that's
so
the
what,
dream.
you know, like that is the
It's
dream.
just
Like,
not our-
but what do I do tomorrow? What do I do with my kid? Like that's
Exactly.
crying and that feels ashamed and that, you know, doesn't have friends.
Exactly.
And what do I do as a parent and or like an individual? I think that's just like making it so human, you know, it's giving it a human face and human problems.
It's about acceptance, right? Like radical acceptance. Like I'm sure there's lots of people diagnosed with something or given a certain challenge and they are either in denial or they're like, well, I'm just going to sit here and be miserable until there is a cure. And I think it's like accepting, like, unfortunately, this is your new life and your new normal and adapting and reaching out to people. That's like my number one, like reach out because people want to help you.
Yeah.
Like
The other
we're not
thing,
supposed to go through this life alone.
oh,
We're supposed to go
absolutely.
through this without people.
I love that. I love that too. You are such a wise young person. You're basically
I'm only
12. She's basically 12, and she speaks like a guru.
Well, I think given a chronic illness,
In the best way.
as
In
a-
the best way.
Thank
I
you.
say that in the best way. You are very wise, I think. The other thing that I really think was really powerful was when you were talking about your journey and the metaphor of treading water in this vast ocean and never getting relief, you know, like never. And I think that's a metaphor for life in many ways. Yours is a little bit more extreme, but I think we can all kind of learn from that and be inspired by that to, you know, keep treading like a little fishy, you know,
and grab
just
those
keep
life
swimming.
And when you see those life rafts pass you, use them.
And use them, and don't be afraid to reach out. And you know, we're like you said, this is just one journey,
Right.
and like why not, you know, use that journey and connect and all these wonderful things that you're doing. So you know, Laura, I know you have like questions like that you like to do when you do your events. I have some questions that I like to ask my guests. I love asking people, you know, who was somebody that left an imprint on your life, like a mentor or a family member, somebody that like gave you like an important lesson.
Oh my gosh.
In a good way. In a good way.
This is hard. There's now so many people I've met doing this that I know have imprinted on me in the most positive of ways, especially when I started and had no idea what I was doing, and hearing people's experiences with this disease like definitely helped turn me into the positive person that I am. The person who, wait, I need to look up this person's name.
Go look it on your phone, it's fine.
Because there's this account that like inspired You're Just My Type completely. Okay, there's this photographer, Brandon Stanton. And
Brandon what?
Brandon Stanton.
Brandon Stanton.
Anyway, he created an account on social media called Humans of New York, and he was what inspired the way I went about starting You're Just My Type, because he would photograph.
Did you meet him?
No.
Ooh.
But he had this account, and he would photograph strangers in New York and ask them a series of similar questions and post these really deep portraits. And it was a way to...
actually, I think I know.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
He has coffee table books out. He is incredible. And when I saw that, I wanted to mirror what he was doing for the Type 1 community. And I definitely wouldn't. It wouldn't have turned into what it did if I wasn't inspired by his account. But recently, meeting all these amazing women like you,
oh, yeah.
and in our women's group, I'm serious, has like, I am in my 30s now, almost 33, and it's like I'm at a point too where my like female friendships and meeting these really strong, powerful women who run their own businesses, that's been life-changing for me in how I want to like continue what I'm doing.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, I'm sure that you are that person to so many people too. And another question that I love asking is, what is something that you're really excited about? Like something that you're planning or that's happening to you. What are you excited about in life right now?
We are at this precipice.
What a great word.
I don't know if I'm using it correctly. With the charity where it's like, it's finally time. It's like, it's been this little baby in my arms and it is finally time. Like, it's still a baby. It's just finally time for it to start taking its first steps. And I feel like 2025 is where we're going to start fostering a new community in New York and the East Coast. and it's going to spread its wings, and we're going to have East Coast, West Coast events and throw a few other cities in there. And I am so excited to give this opportunity and these events to new people. It's like so exciting and it's so scary. Everyone I think wakes up and they're like, what am I doing? I have no idea what I'm doing. But it's like this time where like things are changing and I can feel it, and that's what's scary, right? It's like it's the unknown. And it's
actually, when Jasmine was here yesterday, we also talked about fear.
Yes.
And how
it's
fear
terrifying.
Fear is actually an indicator that you're leveling up.
Oh, I like that.
So it's a good feeling, actually. Good. It means you're out of your comfort.
Yes.
It means you're not like chillaxing on the couch.
That's definitely what's happening.
Like watching Netflix. You're really pushing yourself to do something new.
And things, So I got, of course, I got so comfortable doing the same events in LA this whole time, and now it's time for new people and spaces and connections, and it's scary but exciting.
And so your plan is to sort of unfold like new events. Are you doing like this is not happening at a location, it's just every time it's a different place.
It's all different spaces. We run out different venues, but the goal is to be hosting them year round in all major cities. So next year is just like going to be New York and LA. That's what I think now. Who knows? Things change so much, but we want to do like Chicago next year and Atlanta and Dallas, and just do the first ones in these cities and do some more fundraisers, and just really it's like time for these steps to start happening.
I love that. And you had a really cool fundraiser recently. I couldn't make it. I think I was in Croatia or something. But you did it was a comedian.
Yeah, we had a comedy show with Becky Robinson in Hermosa Beach. And that was like another scary thing. I'm a Scorpio. Are you? No, you're on the cusp. I am very extreme and like very go big or go home. And I went from not doing any type of fundraiser to doing like this huge event with the help of this amazing woman, Michelle. She is incredible, and I couldn't have done it without her. But we did a comedy show with this comedian Becky Robinson. We had a type 1 comedian opener. We had a really last minute silent auction, and we raised $60,000 in one night, which
that's
is
amazing.
Beyond anything I imagined, and that's the money we get to use for our first like level of expansion. So
wonderful, congratulations. Well, I think to conclude, Laura, you're doing such an amazing job. You're such a beacon of light, just in your community, but also beyond. You're such a wonderful human being and a beautiful spirit, and I'm so glad that you're my friend, and I look forward to such amazing things that you're gonna do.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you. This was awesome. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.